The poorest people I've ever seen weren't broke because of bad luck. They were broke because of bad philosophy. What if I told you that the greatest wealth system ever created wasn't built on Wall Street, wasn't discovered in Silicon Valley, and wasn't written in any modern self-help book? It was forged over 2,000 years ago by men who had everything, lost everything, and rebuilt everything, using only the power of a disciplined mind. Here's the question nobody dares to ask. What if your relationship with money isn't a financial problem at all, but a deeply psychological one? Most people chase money their entire lives. The Stoics understood it at its very root. And that single difference changes absolutely everything. Stay right here with me, because what you're about to hear will completely rewire how you think about wealth forever. Stoicism wasn't born inside a classroom. It was born inside chaos. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth and still wrote in his private journal every single morning about controlling desire, practicing restraint, and defining true wealth. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in all of Rome, warned that most people are poor not because they have little, but because they endlessly want more. Epictetus was born a slave and died one of the most philosophically free men who ever lived. He owned almost nothing, yet he understood wealth better than most billionaires do today. But here's what most people miss. These men weren't just philosophers. They were practitioners. They didn't study money from a safe distance. They lived inside its temptation, its devastating loss, and its overwhelming power, and they survived it all. Think deeply about that. Imagine a tree in a violent storm. The weak ones, the ones with shallow roots, they snap instantly. The moment the wind gets brutal, they're completely gone. But the ancient oak? It bends, it sways. It looks almost defeated. But underneath, the roots go deeper than the storm ever could reach. Your mind is that tree. Most people build their financial life on shallow soil, quick returns, emotional reactions, desperate moves made from fear. The Stoics built on bedrock. They understood that wealth isn't what you earn, it's what you become. And here's the part that will genuinely disturb you. Most people are building their entire empire on sand and calling it success. So where are your roots right now? Let me be completely direct with you. You've been taught to work hard. You've been told that hustle is the only answer. You followed the advice, you woke up early, you stayed up dangerously late, you sacrificed weekends, you gave your best years, and yet somehow you still feel painfully behind. Have you ever stopped to genuinely wonder why? You earn more than you did 3 years ago, but you feel no closer to real freedom. You're running faster, but on a treadmill. Be honest with yourself. Does money feel like something you chase, or something you actually command? Most people never ask that question. And that is the real poverty, not the absence of money, but the complete absence of a philosophy to guide it. You're not behind because of bad timing or bad luck. You're behind because nobody ever handed you the mental framework needed to actually handle wealth when it arrives. You kept changing your strategy when what needed to change was your mind entirely. And this is where most people fail. They tweak the plan while the thinking stays completely broken. That ends today. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 Stoic laws of money that nobody ever taught you. These are not tips. These are not trendy hacks. These are ancient psychological laws that have governed the wealth of emperors, warriors, and philosophers for over 2,000 years. If this sounds like something your life desperately needs, and deep down, I believe you already know it does, drop a comment right now and tell me which area of your financial life needs the most urgent work. Money, mindset, discipline? And one final thing, most people will scroll right past this video and spend the rest of their lives wondering why nothing ever truly changes. You're still here. That already separates you from the crowd. Let's go. Law 1. Desire less, have more. Law number 1. The man who wants nothing owns absolutely everything. Stoics believe that financial suffering begins not in the wallet, but in the appetite. Marcus Aurelius wrote that very little is needed to make a truly happy life. Have you noticed how the more you earn, the more you seem to desperately need? That's not growth, that's the dangerous inflation of desire. The man who trains his wants is far richer than the man who endlessly feeds them. Discipline your desire, and you've already won half the financial war without spending a single dollar. But the next law? Even more dangerous to ignore, Law 2. Control what you can, Law number 2. Stop losing money to things completely outside your control. Epictetus said it plainly, some things are in our power, and some are simply not. Most people hemorrhage their mental and financial energy worrying about markets, inflation, economies, and governments. Think about it honestly. How much of your financial stress right now comes from things you literally cannot change? That energy spent on helpless fear is energy stolen directly from your strategy. The Stoic builds a fortress around what he can control, his habits, his choices, his daily spending, and releases everything else without guilt. But Law 3 will challenge everything you currently believe about hard work. Law 3. Work with virtue, not just ambition. Law number 3. Wealth built without virtue is simply a prison with golden bars. Most men chase money purely for status and external validation. The Stoic earns money as a natural byproduct of genuine excellence. Seneca warned that the man who chases wealth for its own sake never truly arrives, because the destination keeps moving further away. Be honest with yourself right now. Are you building something deeply meaningful, or just something impressively large? The Stoic works with clear intention, not blind ambition. He asks himself daily, is what I'm doing worthy of my absolute best self? That single question will completely transform your financial decisions. The next law will shake your ego wide open. Law 4. Voluntary hardship. Law number 4. Practice being poor before poverty ever forces you to. This sounds completely insane until you understand it deeply. Seneca voluntarily lived without luxury for extended periods of time. Not because circumstance demanded it, but because he needed to prove to himself that he could survive it. Have you ever seriously tested your own resilience? When comfort becomes an absolute necessity, you're already a slave to it without realizing it. The Stoic occasionally sleeps on the hard floor, eats the plain simple meal, lives without the premium subscription, to remember that none of it defines his worth or power. That kind of mental freedom is priceless and unshakable. But the next law is where most people silently lose everything. Law 5. Time is the real currency. Law number 5. You don't spend money. You spend the irreplaceable hours of your life that earned it. Seneca's most devastating line cuts like a cold blade. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste so much of it. Every single purchase you make is a direct trade of your finite, non-renewable time. Have you ever calculated exactly how many hours of your actual life that monthly car payment truly costs you? The Stoic measures real wealth, not in dollars accumulated, but in time successfully reclaimed. Spend it accordingly and protect it ruthlessly. But what comes next is the law that most modern men completely and dangerously ignore every single day. Law 6. The ego is expensive. Law number 6. Your ego is your single most expensive financial liability, bar none. Status purchases. Image investments. Things you buy not because you genuinely need them, but because you desperately need people to see them on you. Think about it honestly. How much of your current financial life is actually just a performance for an audience that doesn't truly care? Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should never esteem anything as an advantage if it makes you break your own values. The Stoic buys based on real value, never on social validation. Kill the ego systematically and watch your savings account come dramatically alive. The next law will feel deeply uncomfortable, precisely because it's absolutely true. Law 7. Delayed reward is power, law number 7. The man who can genuinely wait will always outlast the man who cannot. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, patience has become the rarest superpower alive. The Stoic doesn't need the reward immediately. He understands that compounding, in both wealth and character, requires real undisturbed time to work. Have you noticed how the wealthiest and most powerful minds rarely make impulsive emotional financial decisions? They sit with discomfort. They let the cheap moment pass. They choose the long game deliberately over the quick, hollow win. Epictetus taught that true endurance is never passive. It is active, strategic, and deeply, almost violently powerful. The next law is the one nobody ever truly wants to hear. Law 8. Guard your inner circle. Law number 8. Show me your circle clearly, and I will show you your net worth in exactly 10 years. The Stoics were deeply, almost ruthlessly intentional about influence and proximity. Marcus Aurelius studied under great minds on purpose. Epictetus chose his conversations with extreme care and precision. Here's where everything changes. Poverty is contagious, not because money transfers, but because mindset does. The people surrounding you are constantly shaping your financial beliefs, your risk tolerance, and your deepest ambitions without you even noticing it happening. Be completely honest. Are the 5 people closest to you right now genuinely pulling you upward, or silently pulling you under? Choose accordingly and unapologetically. But law 9? This one will cost most people their precious comfort zone entirely. Law 9, memento mori, death as financial clarity. Law number 9, remember that you will die. And let that singular truth sharpen every single financial decision you ever make. This is where Stoicism gets ruthlessly, uncomfortably real. The Stoics meditated on death daily, not to live in fear or morbidity, but to live with razor-sharp clarity. When you truly internalize that your time here is genuinely finite, you stop spending it on things that carry no real meaning. You stop buying things to impress people you don't even particularly like. Have you seriously thought about what your financial life right now says about what you truly, deeply value inside? Death is the final audit of every choice you made. Make absolutely sure yours is clean. The last law ties everything powerfully together. Law 10. Wealth is internal before it is external. Law number 10. The richest version of you already exists, and it lives entirely inside you right now. This is the master law that quietly unlocks every single other one. The Stoics believed that the unshakable foundation of all external wealth is internal order, self-discipline, absolute clarity of purpose, and complete mastery of emotion under pressure. Marcus Aurelius commanded a vast empire, yet every single morning he practiced deep humility and rigorous mental discipline first, before anything else. Here's the raw truth. No strategy will ever work for a broken, chaotic mind. No investment will save a spirit living in disorder. Build yourself with ruthless intention first. The wealth follows naturally, inevitably, powerfully. And this is where most people ultimately fail. They want the spectacular result without becoming the extraordinary person it requires. You've just been handed what most men spend an entire lifetime desperately searching for, and tragically never find. These 10 Stoic laws aren't simply financial principles. They are a complete, fundamental rewiring of how you see yourself in direct relationship with money, time, power, and purpose. The question now is brutally simple. What will you actually do with this? Will you scroll away and forget everything, like the overwhelming majority will do? Or will you let these laws take deep root and permanently change the entire trajectory of your life? Subscribe right now, because this is only the beginning of what we're building here together. And before you leave, tell me in the comments below, which of these 10 laws hit you the absolute hardest? Identity begins with awareness. And you, by watching this far, you're already fundamentally different from most people. Remember that.